Friday night through Saturday night, partly cloudy. Lows in the upper 20s. Highs in the lower 40s. Sunday, mostly cloudy. A slight chance of rain and snow in the morning, then a slight chance of rain in the afternoon. Highs in the lower 40s. Chance of precipitation 20%. Again, the forecast for the Twin Cities next.
Hey guys, Dr. Ken Nordberg here again. What you just heard is some weather reports, or a series of them, on my weather radio. This is a new one I just bought. I had one that lasted about 25 years. It finally gave up on us this last year. It was hard to use in deer camp. Now, weather plays such an important role in what whitetails are going to be up to when you first head out there in the morning to hunt. It can have everything to do with how successful you are during your day of hunting. Where we hunt, I know we always get the latest weather report from national, NOAA type radio, and this particular type of radio has the same S.A.M.E. program on it, digital weather, and it'll provide hazard reports of hazardous weather while we're in deer camp. When we're sent on there automatically, like if all of a sudden they say there's a blizzard warning, a blizzard warning for you guys in this part of our state of Minnesota, something like that. That'll come in at any time during day or night to warn us of that fact, special warnings. We don't get tornadoes in the wintertime, so we don't worry about that. But if we have any hazardous weather approaching us, we'll be automatically warned about that with a radio like this one. I just bought this one. It only cost me $30. It's a Midland radio. I got it from Walmart for $30, but it has this SAME part on it, and that's an important part of a good weather radio wherever you are. I'm in a deep wilderness area where it can be difficult to get weather warnings with any old radio, but that SAME part of it makes it pretty easy. And I can pick up weather reports from 3 different directions in my camp using this radio. And sometimes that has everything to do with strong winds. If you have strong wind from the west, I probably won't get it from the nearest place. I'll have to get it from Duluth or International Falls, Minnesota, that part of the state. If the wind is from the south, then Duluth might be best. It'll have a stronger report from that direction. So, anyway, this little radio makes it really easy to get weather reports. Now, when we wake up in the morning, that's one of the first things. Once we got the lights on, we've got a fire going stove, turn on that weather radio and get our latest weather report, because that will have everything to do with whatever stand site we're planning to use. Like let's say I had a strong wind, or let's just say a wind from the west on opening morning, or northwest, or north even, or southwest, somewhere in that westerly direction. Where am I going to hunt? Well, the 4 best stand sites I have ready for me are 5 of the 5. The one that would be best for taking a big buck with that kind of wind would be what I call my stand site number 4 in a certain part of our hunting area. It's part of a progressive selection of stand sites for hunting a special big buck, one that walks on our tracks a lot. Now, if the wind was from the south, then I would probably go to an altogether different stand site. I call it the lonesome the lonesome pine. Well, in this case, I think I'm renaming my next stand site. It's a new one I never used before. I'll call it the Lonesome Boulder stand site. That's a perfect one for a wind from the south. Now, I got another spot to consider, that same buck that I was talking about when we have a west wind. If I have a south wind, my number 3 site on this progressive line would be excellent for that, because with that wind, all my scent will be blowing out across this open area full of beaver ponds. So the deer, any deer that would be coming toward me, except from any other direction, wouldn't be able to smell me. All my airborne scent would be going out over that open area, and would only bother the deer on the other side. But anyway, but the point is that every morning, I want to know what the wind direction is, and or if it's going to change. Like I might say, it might switch to some other direction in the afternoon. I want to know that too. But it's so important. My sons and I and grandsons and we got 2 ladies in camp now, two daughter-in-laws camp. We all want to make sure that we're using a stand site that can be approached from downwind or crosswind. In the afternoon, it's got to be crosswind. If you go from downwind, the deer coming from downwind, you don't want to be on the downwind side in the evening, because that's the direction the deer are going to be coming from, and they're going to smell you well before they get there, when we're sitting at feeding areas or a certain trail or whatever. But anyway, we always want to make sure we can get to where we're going from downwind or crosswind every time. And if we can't, we aren't going to use that stand site until we can. It's that important. It doesn't make sense to take a chance on heading downwind to a stand site, especially when we expect to see a big buck, because you're going to screw it up right there. And that's the end of the effectiveness of that stand site. I would say at least 95% of the time that stand site is ruined for the rest of the hunting season. So we've learned all these things the hard way, but it pays off. Like I remember Ken shot his biggest buck a few years ago, and on opening morning, the wind was from the wrong direction. It was blowing in a direction that it would have been on his back while I was going to the stand site. So he went and he sat on another stand site that he could approach from downwind that morning. And he saw deer, but nothing like what he was hoping to get at that one stand site. He knew there was a really big buck using a ford across a stream at that point to get to a feeding area right behind where his stand site was. So he was pretty excited about wanting to go there. Well, the next morning he got the perfect wind. It was a northwest wind. That meant heading right into the wind all the way to that stand site. And within, an hour and a half after he climbed to his tree stand in a big, really bushy and pine tree, lots of cover where he sat. Couldn't see his silhouette up there at all. Within an hour and a half, that big buck was on the ground just on the other side of that little stream. He had a really easy shot and took this huge buck. Huge. It was only an 8-pointer, but it was huge. But anyway, when you're hunting older bucks, especially experienced whitetails, I saw a picture or a video on the internet this morning of a person who used a grunt call to call a buck. A buck showed up, really interested in that area where the grunt was coming from. And it was a nice buck, actually, but it had a nice rack on it, but he considered it a smaller deer, and he was thinking, he didn't want to take a shot at that one, it's bow hunting. He's going to wait a year or two for it to get bigger, and it'll be even better. And that's not bad thinking, my boys and I turn down bucks every year thinking of those kind of things, but what happens so often, like say, here comes a yearling, it might be a 6-pointer with brow tines making that a 6-point. So, when you're gonna raise your gun or a bow or just watch it go by and thinking, I'll see you again when you're big. But when it gets bigger, say when it gets to be a 3.5-year-old, it's going to use that grunt call as a mean, that grunt call you use as a means of determining where you are. He's going to know this human makes grunts. And that one little difference maybe in the sound of it or something that's specific to that one call and you is going to tell, well, I'm not going over there. I hear that grunt, but that's that human that uses that call, that makes that sound. They get to be real smart about lures of any kind as they grow older. So maybe it'll work in 2 or 3 years, maybe 1 or 2 years, but the odds are it won't. But it's still okay. Now, anyway, we wouldn't, I couldn't imagine, us Nordberg couldn't imagine in going to a deer camp without having a weather radio in the deer camp. It's so important to our success as buck hunters. So if you don't have one, I suggest you get one. I don't get paid for telling you to buy a certain kind, and I wouldn't ask for anything like that. But this little Midland is a pretty nice one, I think. And it can even work as an alarm clock and really get you out of bed, really good, a hard alarm in the morning. But that's a good one to have and when you're deer hunting, to help you keep track of weather and not ruin your chance of taking deer when you don't realize that this wind is going to be adverse when you head to your stand site. So buy one, get one. If you haven't got one yet, you can spend $200 for a weather radio. But this little $30 one, with care, I think it's going to last a long time. It's going to be well worth having. It's different than weather reports you get on the radio. This one is just
Winds around 5 miles an hour. Tuesday, mostly sunny. Highs in the low.
It just said the wind is going to be 5 miles an hour. When that is almost as good as a calm wind. Deer are going to be really active when the wind is really calm like that. If he said we're going to have wind gusts or wind 20 miles an hour, then you're going to know those deer aren't going to be moving around very much. I explained all that in one of my earlier hunting seminars here on YouTube, but you see, just that little statement right there would make quite a difference on your hunting success any one day. Or if they say rain is going to be light, like drizzle or something like that, a light wind. Well, deer love light rain. They're really active. They're more active when there is no rain. When they got light rain out there in the woods, something to know, like they say, going to be dense fog in the morning. That can be really a good time to be out there as well. But there's so many things that you're going to learn from your weather radio, and one of my earlier seminars that will influence how well you're going to do in a day, or how well you're going to do as a buck hunter over the long run. So get one. Don't go hunting without a weather radio. Oh, one other thing. Let's say we've had this happen quite a few times, and I've talked about this before, but we'll have some pretty severe winter weather during the time we're up there this year, probably. We almost always do during the period we're up deer hunting. And one succession of winter weather events can lead to some of the best deer hunting of the year. Typically, like say, we've had a snowstorm, and after a snowstorm, we'll get strong winds, and the temperature will drop. Boy, it can get way down below zero, 10 below, 20 below. We had some 10 below last year, year before. But when it gets to be like that, the deer aren't going to be as active, at least early in the winter. Later on, like in December, it won't have as much of an effect on them. But in the beginning, you get this really frigid weather, uncomfortable weather, and deer aren't going to be moving much. They'll remain bedded and live on their fat stores during that really cool weather. And then you'll hear on your radio, let's say, tomorrow temperature is going to be 28 degrees and wind will be light, 5 miles an hour like you just said, or maybe even 10 would be all right, but 5 would be better. When you get a thaw or near thaw, and the wind is light, and it can be cloudy or whatever, but when the wind is light and it's you got a thaw, like 28 is a near thaw, or maybe say it could go lower than, maybe even get up to 40 degrees, but after that kind of cold weather, sometime between 11 o'clock in the morning and 3 o'clock in the afternoon, every deer in the woods is going to be on the move feeding for an hour or so. Every deer. It's one of the, ordinarily, maybe after a morning on that freezing cold, and you just kind of, well, I'm going to go back to camp and have some lunch, and I'm going to lay around for a while and miss the best part of the day or the best part of the hunting season for taking a big buck or other deer. So when you get this warning, gee, we're going to have a thaw or a near thaw, and the wind's going to be light at noon today, you should take a lunch with you or something. Stay in the woods. You don't want to come back to camp before 3 o'clock, or you might stay out there all day, but don't miss that midday period when every whitetail deer in the woods is going to be on the move. It might be at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, but somewhere in there it's going to happen, and it never fails. If tomorrow we get another one, gee, tomorrow's going to be warm and the wind's light tomorrow, in the evening, there again, gee, we better stay in the woods tomorrow. Don't come to camp at noon. Stay out there in that woods that next day. I've had it happen in the past where we had an opposite thing happen, where we had unusually warm weather for 5 days, beginning opening day of a deer season. Temperatures between 50 and 70 degrees during the day. When you get that kind of temperature after whitetails have their winter coats, and they get them by October 1st, nothing is going to move. The big dominant buck might move a little bit despite everything during that weather, but don't count on it. But usually they'll just stay in their beds in a shady place or where there's a little breeze, because it's just too uncomfortable for them to be moving around with their winter coats on in that kind of weather. And then I remember this one year it was like that, and we weren't seeing any deer moving at all for those 5 days, and then even early in the morning. But then on the next day, and I remember it was on the 6th day, it was of the year 2000. The temperature dropped down into the 30s at night, and it didn't go above, I think it was like 34 during the day, but it was cool. Nice, cool, comfortable weather for whitetails with coats on there. And when I said that we had the opposite happen, when that happened, to go from excessively warm weather to cool weather that temperatures that are comfortable for whitetails, and the wind is calm or light, there's going to be a midday feeding cycle again. And I remember the first time that happened, I took a buck 8-pointer, feeding on browse, only about 20 feet away from where I was sitting on that particular day. And that day, there were deer walking all over in this clear-cut feeding at midday. So, like I say, the opposite can happen if you go from really hot weather down to normal weather, cool weather. You can have a midday feeding cycle as well. So, but this, you may not anticipate it. I remember last time it happened, everybody was in camp after being out there 10 below zero. And I was sitting there thinking, gee, it's sunny out, and then I heard, I could see through the tent, on the eaves of the big tent, that there was water dripping. And I saw that, hey guys, get right back out there right now. And that was like around 11 o'clock. Every deer in the woods is going to be moving between now and 3 o'clock. And everybody rushed out, and we got 2 bucks that afternoon. Filled out our self-imposed limit of 4 bucks a season. really can make a big difference. So get a weather radio. That'll really help you. That's another one of those things that can keep your odds of taking a big buck much improved. So, there you go. Well, guys, I won't even ask you if you if you felt what you just learned was important. I know you think that. You think, oh, geez, I got to get one of those. So, but anyway, before you go away, be sure to poke that red button down below me here on the screen that says subscribe, and doesn't cost anything, and it doesn't. You're not going to be bugged by anything because you did it, but you're only going to be told. Every time I submit a new YouTube presentation, you'll be told about it, and then hit that thumbs up as well, that thumbs up button, because these are important to me. If I get enough of these things, they'll make it easy for me to continue bringing you these YouTube presentations, and I really want to. You can tell I really enjoy doing this, and I know what I'm teaching you is going to really help your deer hunting in the future. So please do that for me, as a favor to me. Become a subscriber and hit that thumbs up. And with that, thanks again. I'll see you again soon. Be sure to visit my website. Here's the link. Here you'll find links to my blog posts, my Twitter account, my YouTube account, my Amazon store with links to my ebooks, my son's eBay store, a money saver if you're ordering from Canada or other countries, my website bookstore, and much more.